Thanks.
Welcome to BioBytes. Today we have Derek Adams with us. I imagine a lot of our viewers will know of Derek, but if you don't, a brief intro here. Currently the CEO at Stellular Bio, also on the board at Alavir. I think Derek is somebody that's had a depth of experience across the likes of Bluebird Bio, Evelo Biosciences, Alexion, 25 years worth of industry experience across large pharma and smaller biotechs. And most recently, Derek was inducted into the American Institute of Medical and Biological Engineering, which I think is a huge congrats. And from my understanding, it's comprised of the top 2% of medical and biological engineers. So that's incredible. Really excited to have Derek here with us today as we tap into your background, your experiences, and how you've been a part of growing successful companies. So Derek, if you could kindly start us off with an intro into your background and key critical career moves that you made to date that helped you get to where you are, that would be incredible.
Of course, of course. Thank you very much, Shakir, for having me on. I appreciate it. It's great to be here. As you mentioned, I'll actually start where I am now. So I am the CEO of Stellular Bio. We're a preclinical biotechnology company that's based in the Boston area. Boston, Massachusetts area for our global listeners.
Yeah.
And we are developing a novel biologic platform that's inspired by platelet biology, where our lead asset is targeted for the clinic and ocular surface disease in the next couple of years. Exciting time to be a CEO, but I can tell you that in the last couple of years, it's been a rocky time to learn how to be a CEO, as probably many of your listeners and certainly all the CEOs listening are very much aware of the very constrained capital environment that we've been working under, and it has forced us all to learn a bunch of different things. So in this most recent role that I've had, I've certainly learned what a lot of other leaders in the biotech space have learned, and that is one is focus. Absolutely, the need to focus your efforts on a lead asset or the most promising area of your technology. You just don't have the ability to do it all. The capital constraints are there. The second thing is a financial discipline to extend your capital runway. The cash runway is sort of the survival mode for a lot of us to be able to continue the effort of doing great science, but also talking to a lot of the potential funders out there to get them inspired by what we're doing and get them to know what we're doing. It's taking a little longer, so we all have to keep the cash runway going. And then the third thing, which is been a fascinating thing to learn, is just to keep the board and the entire team focused and excited about what we're doing, despite the fact that it's been a very challenging environment for biotech overall. And it doesn't help when Fierce Biotech has their layoff tracker up there for the last couple of years. Everybody can see the doom and gloom that's out there. So there's a lot of work to do to inspire people just in your own company, in addition to selling it to other people. So that's been actually kind of fascinating. We can talk more about that if you want to, but I have lots of interesting tidbits of things I've learned in prior roles if you want me to go into that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And I guess something that I wanted to talk to you about, Derek, was, how has that journey been for you going from a C-suite operational and technical leader in some really great companies into a CEO and really scaling within, I think what we both agree is a challenging period, right? From an investment standpoint and capital perspective, and equally, like you said, biotech maybe having a bit of a rough patch and things like, hiring and layoffs being glorified, for good and bad reasons. I mean, tell me a bit about that journey and talk to the audience about that.
Yeah, certainly. So the journey to CEO is in my case certainly wasn't a linear path and wasn't necessarily the be all end all of what I expected my career to be, and I imagine that a lot of people who end up in this role have very similar kind of thoughts of working through technical roles and then getting more and more understanding and ability to kind of influence things more generally, and that's sort of how it went for me. And it was a fascinating time to take the reins of a biotechnology company when the environment was really kind of coming down off the high of the COVID era boom of biotech funding, and seeing a lot of other companies go through exactly what you said, which is the downsizing that everybody had to go through. We had to do the same thing, and keeping people motivated and focused on what can we do now actually is something that throughout my whole career I've been able to build on some of those learnings. So they carried through to being able to focus a lot on the internal workings and building up of the team, of the science, of the direction of the company. The fascinating thing, and this is the thing that I think a lot of us, certainly very technical people who end up in these kinds of roles that have to build on, is our external network and really growing the external relationships. And we can talk more about that later, but I can certainly tell you that in my career I've had a few key moments that helped build my understanding of what I need to do to be successful in this role, all the way back to the days when I started my career after a PhD in chemical engineering at Merck. I was doing technical support of viral vaccine manufacturing. Very technical role, very actually industrial and manufacturing role, very closely associated with the manufacturing teams that were there. And I got a great understanding of what it takes to actually commercialize a medicine. And that's something that I think certainly in biotech, there's not a lot of people who really quite understand that getting a drug approved is just the starting line. It is only the beginning of what it takes to actually bring important medicines to patients. The commercial arena, the after drug approval, that's certainly on the manufacturing teams and the CMC teams overall. That's where the work really begins, is being able to do that day after day and being able to provide a product, and particularly in the biologics area, products that are very complicated to manufacture, and you're learning about the products well after drug approval. You know very little about the actual product when you launch, and so you're capturing all of these learnings afterward. And having worked at a big company like Merck and actually understanding that that's some of the advantages of a big company with all the resources it has to be able to capture those learnings and be able to help push teams to provide product globally to patients who need the product it's an immense amount of resources to do that. And that was a great learning, certainly very early in my career, to understand what that other end looks like, that we're all trying to get to as biotechs. We want to get drugs approved. We want to be a profitable company. We want to be able to provide products to patients, and understanding what it takes. It's an immense amount of work to get there. And then also after Merck, I spent 10 years at Alexion Pharmaceuticals. And one of the key things I learned there almost immediately after joining is the importance of making some very critical decisions for the company, and doing it without hesitation. So really, right after I joined, the Alexion was not a rare disease company when I joined. It was very focused on complement inhibition for even large diseases. But the lead product, pexilizumab, failed its second phase 3 study pretty close to after I joined. And I was very impressed with the leadership of the CEO, Lenny Bell, and the leadership team that actually took that trial failure and turned it into a refocus for the whole company on the second product in the pipeline, which was eculizumab for an ultra-rare disease. Basically, without hesitation and no wishy-washiness, said, all right, the data are telling us this, we're now going in this direction, this is who we are, this is where we're going. I really appreciated that kind of leadership and that kind of confidence that the science told us what it needed to tell us, and now we're going in a different direction. That's the kind of thing that I really aspire to be able to do, and I think a lot of us want to be in those kinds of moments and feel like we are going to be able to make those tough decisions. And I certainly learned the effect of being able to make those tough decisions. I'm sure it was not easy. I'm sure it was a very difficult time for the leadership team at the time. But having been on the other end of it, I was very appreciative of the ability to do that. And obviously, the rest of that story is that eculizumab became a blockbuster in Soliris, and certainly that was a very a positive decision, and it worked out very, very well. And so certainly in hindsight, it looked like absolutely the right thing to do, but I'm sure at the time it was very difficult. And then the third thing, after having spent about four plus years at Bluebird Bio, having worked on cell and gene therapies, the products that have just absolutely amazing benefits for patients. You just cannot overstate how important these products are, and also how difficult they are to manufacture. All of that was the reason to be there and the excitement of working on that and building a team to kind of make these really important products available for patients. But the real thing that I was impressed with at Bluebird was the intentional building of an amazing culture in the company. And that's something that at Stellular I really want to be able to carry forward, is being intentional about building a culture where everybody can bring their whole selves to work. And that was what we talked about at Bluebird. That was one of the things that really inspired me to come to work every day. And I know it inspired a lot of other birds, despite all of the fun bird puns that we had there. It was a really amazing culture and a very intentionally built culture from the beginning, by the leadership team, by the board, all working together to try to really make an amazing culture. And that's a learning that I'm really trying to carry forward. I really want to be able to create an environment that has the same kind of relaxed, authentic atmosphere that people can feel comfortable coming into work and not having to pretend that they're somebody else.
That's incredible. I mentioned to Jason Cole, who I know you know quite well, was also on the podcast. And I think that Bluebird era there is an environment and a culture that was, like you mentioned, thoughtfully created, very considered thought process. And being one of the leadership members there, like you were, I think you must have been a huge part of creating that environment and what it takes to drive a successful biotech in one of the most complex areas. Like you said, cell and gene therapy is not an easy area. And they say, drug development is not for the faint-hearted. But then, as you mentioned, getting those products to patients and the manufacturing side of it is a whole nother challenge, right? That's a whole nother aspect in itself. And it's very interesting to hear your background right through your days at Merck, where you had almost a foundation laid down of that environment and what it's like from that larger organization, transitioning that over as you get smaller and smaller, and how companies have made, critical decisions. And I mean, I can only imagine how tough that call must have been for the folks at Alexion. But I think, like you said, it speaks volumes to their character and following the science and doing what has to be done, even when it doesn't feel like the most natural or the most, maybe a correct thing to do. You've got to follow the science. And a lot of the leaders that we have on BioBytes is a common trend, Derek, which is, following the science, following what it's showing us, what the indications are, and being true to that. And I think that's what we're seeing, a lot of synergy across the board. But that's fantastic. And then, Derek, when building biotechs from ground up, and you're going through that process now, what are some of the most successful characteristics and attributes that you strive for or look out for when you're doing this?
So there are two major things that I look for, and anybody who's worked with me can probably shout it out right now because I talk about it nonstop, and I love leadership development. It's a nonstop learning for me on that one. But to me, the two most important characteristics for aspiring leaders in any company, but certainly in biotech, are self-awareness and learning agility. And the self-awareness piece is absolutely foundational to having amazing leaders. The ability to understand that everybody is sending messages to everyone else all the time, verbal and nonverbal. And the messages that leaders send, certainly ones that get higher in organizations, are sending louder messages because people are watching them all the time. It's just the power dynamic that comes from a hierarchy like that. And the best leaders are the ones who can tune into what messages they are sending, understanding the impact those messages are having on other people, and having the ability to alter those messages to be the most effective leaders they can be. That is advanced leadership, and it is foundational leadership at the same time, that you need to be able to understand how you are coming across, how you have influence on people, even when you don't even think you're speaking, even when you're just coming into work, looking at your phone, not even paying attention to what's going on. You're always sending a message, and it's amazing how many people just don't quite understand the influence that they have. And it's wrapped up in the whole emotional intelligence piece. It's all the same kind of thing, but the ability to understand those messages and be able to thoughtfully tailor them is a superpower. And I look for leaders who are what I call these beacons of positive energy, the people who can tailor their messages and tailor their influence so that they come into a room, suddenly everybody around them feels better, works more productively, just suddenly becomes better just by that person coming into the room. It's a huge power. And many people probably have never really realized that there are some people like that. They just sort of notice that, hey, I feel better today. And some of it could be because this person actually came in and brightened their day. And I'm not talking about people who are just relentlessly positive. I'm more talking about just people who have that ability to encourage others and just be in the moment with others like that. Conversely, and this is something that I'm sure we all struggle with, there are people who are beacons of negative energy, and they come in and kind of more suck the energy out of the room, more have a negative emotional influence on what's going on. People don't quite understand it, but they feel better when that person's not in the room. And not to harp too much on those kind of people, the thing that I've learned the most is those skill sets are exactly the same. That ability to either lift up a room or tear it down is the same skill set. And the people who are most self-aware, who have the ability to understand that they have that kind of influence and can turn it to a positive, are the people that you just cannot have enough of those people in an organization. They are amazing people to have, and you just can't help but be successful when they're part of it. But it also ties into my second point of learning agility, which is the ability to be humble in the face of new information and new ideas and new situations, because we're always faced with those. There's not a day goes by I'm not constantly faced with things I've never seen before, never understood before. I'm not spending a lot of my time saying, oh yeah, I've done that 3, 4, 17 times. Sometimes I do that, but most of the time they're unique situations. And so I have to be able to, and others just need to be able to dive into new situations with that humility and curiosity that it takes to learn new things and to help yourself get past that, boy, do I feel like an idiot right now. That self-awareness helps too, to be able to get through those things. So those are really the two big things that I look for and I think are key for aspiring leaders in a biotech, in any organization, and that biotech leadership should be looking for their team is self-awareness and learning agility.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think something about being emotionally aware and having a high level of EQ. It's like when you're coaching people, right? Yes, somebody has to be coachable, but equally, somebody told me when I was young, praise somebody 2 to 3 times before you correct them. And it's almost a way that there's so much value and positive and light to see in people around you who are working in the same mission, that providing that first then opens up the thought process to how do we get better, right? And I think it's being able to recognize people for who they are and the value add that they do have, but then equally being able to tell them at times, how do we get better, right? And how do we get to where we need to get to, which is improving yourself and also where the organization is heading to. And, I think we talk about it, but it is emotional intelligence. It's understanding people. And they often say that the role at some point becomes easy. The challenging part is, can you manage people? Can you get the best out of people? And are you able to get people to the next level? And I think that's what folks, as I think you were alluding to, people feel positive around people that they feel are generally benefiting their career progression, their development, and that level of positivity, I think speaks for itself when you hire great leaders. I think you've touched on some of it, but what 2 pieces of advice would you share for leaders currently who are growing biotechs and executive leadership, or in executive leadership roles? What 2 bits of advice would you give to them, Derek?
Well, certainly, I haven't been a CEO forever, so I would guess that the people who have done this forever, have lots of different pieces of advice from things learned and scars they have from being a CEO in multiple different kinds of environments. But for me, the things that I would advise people to do and things that I practice at Stellular is trying to be as transparent as possible, and that for some people I think might actually be an antithesis of being effective in a CEO, and certainly in a public company, being transparent. You have to be kind of careful about material, non-public information and such. But for small, growing biotechs, being transparent in treating your team like adults, giving them the understanding of what it is that the company is trying to do, why we're trying to do it, what pressures we're facing, all those things, what problems that I'm trying to solve that even I don't know the answers to, that I need help with, that I'm looking for other help with. That has tremendous value in helping the team buy into the collective effort that's required to actually make this great science come to life. This is a team sport. This is an organization wide effort that no one person can do it alone. And we all have to kind of buy into where it is that we're going. And so being as transparent as possible is one of the key pieces of advice that I would give. I think the nature of that at different companies and different levels, and helping people see without jargon what is going on is really important. The other thing is just, and this is going to sound very trite, but that's sort of the nature of what we're supposed to do as senior leaders in an organization, is paint the vision of a future that we're all trying to get to, and then let the team pave the road to get there. So instead of telling people where we're going, how we're going to get there, how much money we have to use, what resources we're allowed to use, and what techniques we're allowed to use, and how many people we're allowed to do it with, giving a little bit of freedom for the team to solve some of those problems, because that's a huge amount of energy I don't have to expend if I do that. But it's very inspiring for me and for the whole team to see it all come together in ways that you didn't expect, because you bring in diverse perspectives, diverse opinions of the best ways to do things, lots of great conversation, but giving people the vision of where are we going and why are we going there, that helps people with the rest of it so much, rather than starting from the bottom up of, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, starting with the end in mind. And again, it sounds very simple. It sounds kind of obvious, and I'm sure people have heard it before. But that and transparency are probably the two biggest things that I would consider as advice for senior leaders in biotech.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think to build on that, also, it's why you hire great people, right? You spend such a an in-depth time and process to hire the very best people. You get them in the room, you paint the big picture, like you said, and the vision board, right? That's the CEO's goal. What's the storyline? What's the vision board? And then, you kind of move out the way, and you let them get on with it, and coach them along the way, and provide that strategical input. So, that's fantastic, Derek. And throughout this journey that you've been on, right from Merck, right, all the way through to Stellular Bio today, which is an incredible organization. I mean, how do you go about fostering a culture of innovation and collaboration within companies?
Yeah, the interesting thing that I found is, especially with dealing with a very science-based team, is that it's usually trying to help the science focus understand the science focused people understand that we're doing this as a business. Especially in the biotech industry, we are in the science business, and it requires both of those things to actually be successful. And so helping the scientific teams understand the innovation that is required to get products ultimately to patients who can benefit from this great medical science that we're building, is really important. And that's something that actually, as a technical person, you have to spend a lot of time understanding a lot of the ins and outs of business, which for some of us can feel really exciting. It's a new thing to learn, and that's kind of the way I feel. To some people, it can feel like an extraneous, really annoying thing that gets in the way of really fun scientific discourse. And obviously, some of the best people are the people who can do both very, very well. And those are the things that I strive to be able to do. But the pairing of good business strategy with a good science strategy is what is necessary to actually bring innovation to the forefront. I think a lot of the great scientific ideas are ones that are coming out of really important discourse of solving problems to get this innovation to patients. There's a lot more than just the initial, hey, I have this drug target and it goes after this other, or we have this agonist that goes after this drug target, and that innovation, is obviously the root of maybe a drug that you're going to develop. But there are so many other problems to solve to getting that product ultimately to helping patients. And there's innovation all the way through. There's innovation in not just the scientific pieces of it, but the engineering pieces, supply chain pieces of it, the regulatory strategy part of it, the clinical strategy. There's a lot of innovation in all of those areas, and helping people see that all of those areas require innovation, and they're important to bring your product to patients. That collectively makes a good business. is sort of how I try at Stellular to help people understand the context of why we're doing what we're doing, and why it's important for us to look at the science and how the business is going to help that science thrive.
It's fantastic. And Derek, could you share some major setbacks that you faced throughout the years in leadership within the biotech world?
Yeah, I think the obviously the last couple of years, I'm going to call that a setback, in the sense of taking over a biotech company in one of the more challenging capital formation. I guess somebody termed it a nuclear winter of biotech capital formation. Is I guess you can call it a setback. I'm going to call it an intense learning experience at a minimum, and certainly have a lot of learnings through this time. And I think that has been an opportunity for me to learn a bunch of things, try a bunch of things that actually have not worked, and that is clearly some areas of that I'm working on now. So it's something that we can talk about in a bit if you want. But just building a network of people in the venture capital community, in the overall CEO peer network, that is very different than the network I had as a technical professional in the CMC areas. That relationship building, I think is hugely important, and is something that I didn't actually recognize until a little while ago how important it is. I kind of knew it, but I didn't put enough effort on it. And so that's something that I'm pushing right now, which is actually a wonderful time to learn and frankly just get to know people, which I didn't realize how fun that was and how exciting it is to just connect with other people and realize how many people are going through exactly the same things. So that's one of the great things that I'm learning now. And the other thing that I mentioned, I go back to sort of building a business, that I think is what I was talking about before, is pairing the business strategy with the science strategy, and making sure that talking to the right audience about the company, you have to balance those two things. You have to talk to the people who are thinking about it in terms of money and return in the ways that they like to hear that. They want to hear about the science. They're obviously very science savvy, and they understand the importance of the technical and the great scientific work that we're trying to do, but they want to know about the business pieces of it too. And so just leading with the science isn't always the best way to capture somebody's attention in that arena. And so then it goes back to what sounds like very fundamental things, which is knowing the audience you're talking to, and tailoring your message to the right audience. It's a simple fundamental thing that I've learned certainly over the last couple of years that I'm employing now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Derek, you often hear, right, and I'm sure you'd agree, but one of the most kind of critical responsibilities for the CEO is getting the storyline and the image and being able to articulate that as best as possible. How have you found that journey with Stellular Bio today?
Um, it's been a long road, trying to build the story. It's actually been gratifying to be um, on where we are now with the story, and actually having helped the team build the science, help the team see what the story could be, crafting the messages that we want to give to external parties, and then giving that message over and over again, and honing it and practicing, getting the feedback, hearing what people think about that, and tailoring the message as needed. All of that has been a really gratifying journey. And it's actually pretty intimidating when I look back on all of the things that I had to learn for that, and recognizing how much we had to grow our story. At the same time, I had to grow my ability to tell the story. Those things sort of had to go hand in hand, and it's a great opportunity and great time now that we've been able to hone the story and sharpen some of the points to make it clear where we're going to ourselves first, and then be able to tell it to other people. And I think that has been been one of the key things. Is I think I have a great leadership coach, and she helps me see a lot of different things that I'm working on. And one of the things that she said is that as CEO I have to be the believer in chief, and that is one of the key things that I think all of us CEOs really strive to be, is to believe in what we're doing so strongly that in addition to telling people what we are doing and the benefits of what we're doing for patients, the benefits for building a business, we tell it with such passion that people feel it. We transfer the passion to other people, and that's a key learning. And boy, for technical people, that takes some time to learn. I can tell you that.
Yeah, yeah, incredible. I appreciate that. And in your experience, and we spoke about investors there a little bit, but what are some of the key strategies for building and maintaining those relationships with key stakeholders, such as investors, regulatory bodies, and healthcare providers?
That's a great question. I have, at the moment, really kind of only general answers, because that's actually the key area I am building right now, and really enjoying learning that. But the way I see it is that relationship management is a skill set unto itself. It's a lifelong pursuit, just like leadership development. It's not something that I can ever say, aha, I'm done with this. I've learned everything there is to know about this. It requires constant attention, constant learning, constant connections with people to keep those relationships alive, and thriving. And that's something that actually has been a really interesting learning for me, is building relationships. It takes the effort to reach out and connect with people, but it also takes the effort to keep those connections going. And sometimes they're very simple, but just maintaining that connection is very important. But you can also apply a lot of things that, especially for us technical people, thinking of it from the perspective of learning a new technical skill. You can think of it between theory and practice, right? There are theory, there are lots of leadership books, there's lots of relationship management books you can read to learn about how to do things better. You can watch a lot of really interesting YouTube videos or LinkedIn articles to get better at building those relationships. But then there's the practice of, you just got to do it. You just got to just constantly talk with people and practice connecting with people. And I guess I'm speaking mostly to the introverts in the room. The extroverts are probably all rolling their eyes saying, oh, of course we knew that, right? But not everybody's the same. And so in different roles require different strengths, and some of us have to build the strengths in different areas. And the last thing that I'm really trying to work on, and this is something that it goes with authenticity, is really being curious about what other people need, and being as open as I can be about what I need. So that authentic give and take really helps to build a more firm relationship, rather than kind of a high level transactional relationship that some people may think about it.
Yeah, fantastic. Off topic, but a quote that came to mind from Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. The world is not in your books and your maps. And like I said, you've got to really get out there. You've got to apply yourself. You've got to get yourself caught up in the challenges and deal with them at face front. And I think that in itself, as you may have alluded to, from an introvert or technical background, that could be the learning curve.
Yep.
But that's incredible. And I guess in terms of your experience and kind of the journey that you've been on, kind of a question that I want to round off on is, what advice would you give to emerging biotech leaders, as they go through this journey and they begin to kind of scale and see how they can successfully grow their companies?
Well, I think the biggest learning that I have taken, and that I would give to others, is build a versatile team. I know that a lot of us biotech start out with a key, very specific technical idea, and often with a technical founder who's very focused on that idea and seeing that idea come to life. But as you're starting to build the company around that and starting to grow that, having a versatile team who buy into the vision of the company and aren't just there because I want to work on AAV gene therapy or I want to work on CRISPR, who are there because they see the possibilities of the platform, the technology, the people, the company, and who understand where the business is going, is key. Because the nature of biotech is that we ask and answer hard questions. That's our whole goal. And often if we've asked the right question and we've tested it properly and we've know we've gotten the right answer, sometimes that right answer is this doesn't work, or this is not the right area that we should be working in. That's success in biotech. We did the right thing, asked the right question, got the right answer, and then the next thing that we do all the time in biotech is pivot. We learn from that. Maybe you can call it a failure in one sense, but from that a learning, we have learned, and now we can apply our talents to something more potentially successful. And if you don't have a team that actually can pivot with you, because they are only focused on one project, and maybe their project is the one that failed or got cut, and then they suddenly can't make the pivot because their reason for being at the company is no longer there. That is very disruptive, and sometimes it can be very difficult because you have to turn over the team sometimes, or if you're trying to force people to be square pegs and round holes, they either just can't make that switch or they don't want to, and it can be very difficult, more difficult than it needs to be. It's already very difficult to make a pivot like that in biotech. So I'd really encourage people to look at being as versatile as possible, and at Stellular, that's actually something that I've talked about with the entire team, is that I want them to be understanding the needs of the company and what we're doing with the platform and the science, but also be willing to learn as many new things as possible. It goes back to my learning agility thing. If the opportunity for them to learn as many different things as possible is there, but it also is a huge opportunity for the company for people to learn those things and then be able to pivot with the company and continue growing their career despite the fact that the project that they might have been working on got cut. And I think that's really, really important for those of us building companies to really learn.
Fantastic. And Derek, what are you most excited about at Stellular Bio? What's coming up that you, as a CEO, are passionate about and thrilled about?
Well, as we kind of talked about it through a lot of these questions that have been building the story of the company, we have been really honing the platform and aiming the lead candidate at our ocular surface disease indication and starting to build that path to actually being able to test our product in patients. And that's the next phase of what we're doing right now is building off of our wonderful in vivo data, building the story and the path, and then hopefully the financing to be able to get us through to IND and into the clinical studies. That requires not really a pivot of direction, but it certainly requires a change of resource focus in the company, and I'm excited to see our team respond to that, and they're very excited about being able to see something move forward like this, and I'm excited to actually start talking to potential investors to be partners with us in this journey.
Amazing. Well, Derek, I want to thank you so much for coming on BioBytes today. This has been an incredible chat, and I've no doubt that the listeners would have enjoyed this conversation. So thank you so much, Derek. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Shakir. Thanks very much for having me on, and thanks to all your listeners.
Absolutely.